moving on to the piece de resistance of this podcast, we are going to give the NBA awards out based on our votes, submit our individual ballots, and then at the end of it have the official the Shootaround awards ballot to submit. Starting off with Coach of the Year, I'll go first. I'm saying Chris Finch. I think Minnesota deserves credit. A little bit of a surprise this year. Their defense has been incredible. I think letting Rudy Gobert be like the man devising the defensive scheme is very smart. For the first time in his career, Rudy Gobert has gotten absolutely zero offensive rebounds off of his team's free throws, whether it be his own or just, given the opportunity to get his own team's rebound off a free throw. He has not even attempted it. He has gotten none all year. Rudy Gobert is getting back on defense no matter what. I think Minnesota deserves some credit for the remarkable season they're having. And to me, giving Chris Finch this award is our way of doing that.
I do want to point this out because some people were talking about this in the comment section. Apparently Rudy Gobert was foundational in their defensive scheme. Like a lot of it was his idea of how they should run stuff. But hey, if you're going to ask anybody how to play defense, it's fair enough. Maybe a degree of that's taken away from Chris Finch, but also maybe a degree of it is credit to him for allowing his players to
that's what I
do what they're good at.
Props to him. Putting people in positions to win is all that coaching is. Mm-hmm. So who wants
Jacob, who's your coach of the year?
Mark Daigneault.
Yeah.
Do I need to elaborate further?
I'll do it for you. I think it's, for me at least, it's just because, so they actually did it? So Oklahoma City, it's like, we're not doing this thing where for a few years we're like, nah, man, just wait until, Lou Dort and all these guys.
Dude, we're just here now. I was afraid. There was a part of me that was like, maybe this team's just going to be like the Timberwolves with Andrew Wiggins and Cat, where it's like, just wait till you see, and then it doesn't happen.
It just never happened.
I still believed in them, but I was like, there's a slight chance. And then they came in, and we all had high expectations for OKC. They exceeded those. We didn't expect them to be a top 3 seed in the conference. We didn't expect Shea to be like a top 3 MVP candidate for sure. And here we are now, and we're talking about them potentially winning a championship when this is their first year in the playoffs with this, core.
We're not.
Not that they're good. No, I don't.
But you're right. But you're right.
I don't mean talking about it like they're the front runners, but they have a place. They have a seat at the table.
Yeah, Alex, what's your vote?
Mark Daigneault. I just think scheme wise, OKC is doing things very differently. There is a level of innovation that I think is worth giving credit to. Obviously, OKC doesn't have a traditional center. Chet's a very modern center, and a lot of people argued okay, this isn't going to work because he's significantly less bulky center. He's going to be doing a lot of popping instead of just rolling to the rim, struggle to handle people in the post. And that just hasn't been the case. He's been great. And I think a lot of that is due to the, situations that Mark Daigneault allows him to end up in. And it's fun. I've really enjoyed it.
I also think OKC is really good at playing bigger than they are in general, which is often a coaching thing. I think the coach of the year more often than not is going to go to a coach who A, clearly played an integral part in the team's success, and B, was a surprise team to some degree, exceeded high expectations or exceeded mid expectations, whatever it may be. But I don't know if there's another coach in the league who has had this clear of an impact and exceeded expectations to this degree.
Also, to Rudy's point, though, Chris Finch kind of has. I'd say he's
Chris
in that
Finch exceeded. He definitely exceeded expectations. Yeah. For sure.
All right, so looking like Mark D gonna be our official Coach of the Year submission. Up next, we got a tricky one. It's Clutch Player of the Year. I have a particular case that I want to make for a guy who is not even on the ballot in terms of the Vegas odds and who's favored in this award. I think Kyrie Irving deserves this award. I'm not a Kyrie guy, never have been. I've always been a little bit of a Kyrie hater. But let me just give you guys the numbers. On top of that incredible shot, which is going to be burned into everyone's mind as one of the better Kyrie highlights of all time.
Kleba looking in for Irving. Irving for the win. Oh,
Kyrie Irving is probably by far and away the most clutch player in the NBA right now. Within clutch time, according to NBA.com, there are very few guys who have a high win percentage of games that enter clutch time. Kyrie Irving is one of the only guys with a winning percentage within this bundle of guys. and it's crazy high. He's 13-3 in 16 games where he's played in clutch time. He is leading the league in plus minus in clutch time at 3.9 plus minus. Like, I understand that this is like specifically like plus minus isn't like very perfect at all, but for telling the story of who is the most clutch, who gets your team to come back from behind or make a big shot at the end, Kyrie Irving's measurables are uncomparable. And he's not even on the ballot this year because he's second fiddle in Dallas. And I think this is the perfect award to give to a guy like Kyrie, whose entire legacy is based on being maybe the best ball handler of all time, probably the best ball handler of all time,
Definitely.
and having one of the most important shots in NBA history ever by a country fucking mile. So giving him the clutch player of the year award, especially knowing that he just hit that crazy shot that everyone's going to remember and the numbers support it and his legacy before it, would be something that like legitimizes this award to me.
I don't know what the qualifiers are for being considered for clutch player of the year, but if there are qualifiers, I would imagine it's because there's 147 players that have played more clutch minutes than Kyrie Irving. For some context, he's played 56 clutch minutes this year. The top 50 players in clutch minutes have all played 95 clutch minutes or more.
Right now, the favorite in the Vegas books is DeMar DeRozan, who he is statistically the best clutch player this year. Pre-pod, Jacob, you said that you were going to side with DeMar. Is that still your pick?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll fill you in for DeMar. Alex, you also go for DeMar.
I think just like his game lends itself to those moments because his whole game is just very repeatable, reliable moves that will work now. They'll work when he's 50 years old playing in a LA Fitness. Like it's just stuff that works. It lends itself to those moments and it's a blast to watch.
So looks like we're tied for clutch player of the year, assuming that I heard you right, Nick, saying that I turned you into being a Kyrie clutch player of the year voter.
I like it. It's a fun take. He's not going to win if he's just not on the, like, if he's just not in consideration, but I don't think this award is real. So I'll roll with it.
Yeah, it just doesn't have the history of precedent to like.
Not yet. Like we can get
idea.
there, but not yet.
Next, we got sixth man of the year. So who's your sixth man of the year, Jacob?
Naz Reid.
So Malik Monk is like statistically the big favorite in the Vegas books right now, but Naz Reid is second. I believe he's like,
as far as I'm concerned, Naz Reid is the best bench player in the entire NBA.
And I strongly agree. He's a legend.
He shouldn't be a bench player. He just happens to be on a team with two all-star level centers.
I would probably still go with, I mean, Naz Reid, it's like the whole efficiency versus like intangible stuff. Because Naz Reid, like, he comes in, he's not going to make a ton of mistakes. He's going to get you buckets. He's going to compete on defense. Naz Reid rocks. And then Malik Monk comes in, and he's, like, going to fly up and down the court. He's going to keep defenses on their toes at all times. He's going to make some ridiculously clutch shots. I think of, like, sixth men this year, I'm pretty sure he's been like the most clutch sixth man this year.
Can I vote for Eric Gordon? What's he doing? Can I vote for Eric Gordon? Can we do that again? One last dance. For Eric Gordon winning sixth man. I don't know. Who cares? He won 100 in the 2010s. Can we just give him one more before he retires?
Alex, is your official vote Malik Monk?
The clutch stuff for Malik Monk, I like. That's probably the swing factor for me.
I think Naz Reid is one of the guys that probably deserves it. There's been a lot of stellar bench players this year without anyone that's like quietly dropping 20 points a game or anything like that, you know. Malik Monk putting up like a very efficient 14-5. Someone who I think deserves a mention, who is again not a guy I found on like the sports book like likely candidates. Duncan Robinson really deserves some love as like the best, one of the best bench players in the league. His game has progressed a lot this year. The stats don't necessarily reflect it perfectly, but when you watch Duncan, he just fucking pops way more than he did before. But my official vote would be for Duncan Robinson. That does leave it to Malik Monk, though. Up next, we got Rookie of the Year. Do we really have to complicate this?
Next.
Chet is going to be one of the best Rookie of the Year runner-ups in the history of the NBA, I think. And the fact that that's true and it's not close shows how fucking crazy Wemby has been. Chet was my pick earlier in the year, but once Wemby like started putting up the crazy ass numbers, it was done.
Or I think Wemby is really interesting is in the defensive player of the year conversation because he's probably going to come in second. But for my vote, I'm going to give it to Wemby for two reasons. One, I think holding
Wait, for defensive player of the year?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Let me say my case. I think that Rudy Gobert not having 4 DPOYs yet is fine. It's like he's probably going to get his 4th, and then I'll be the last one because it's Wemby every year after that, I guess, until voter fatigue sets in. There's only been 2 guys to get the most DPOYs ever, and I don't think Rudy Gobert is on the level of those guys. I think he's of a Dwight Howard level ilk defender who won 3 straight and then never won another one. I think giving Rudy Gobert 4 is not exactly indicative of the hierarchy of all-time defenders to me.
Yeah, I do. I like the argument for Wemby. Obviously, just posted a video about it. But going with the history of the precedent, I could not be more sure that Rudy is going to win it. And I personally like Wemby's quote about it, where it's like, yeah, let him have this one. We're in no rush to give Wemby Defensive Player of the Year awards. If I could take an over on him winning 5 DPOYs, I would do it. Or I guess 4.5 to where he gets 5. I think he will set the record for most Defensive Player of the Years any player's ever got.
For somebody who was spearheading the super spreader event of the coronavirus, Rudy Gobert has had a pretty generational recovery.
Rebrand?
In trying to defend us all from the evils of gambling. And for that reason, I'm going with Rudy Gobert for Defensive Player of the Year.
I'm going Gobert.
Before we get into the MVP, with Gobert winning the DPOY, we got to get into the MIP. I'm going Jaren Jackson because I'm entirely unbiased. But he's backpacking a horrible team to being one of the best defenses in basketball, especially proportionate to the level of talent on there. Overall, the best isolation scorer in basketball is also last year's DPOY, and I think that's a significant improvement.
He's also averaging half of the blocks that he did last year. 4 more points per game, but on much worse efficiency. He also went from leading the league in blocks to not even averaging 2.
Sorry, I didn't know that blocks were the entire indication.
This is Jaren Jackson Jr.
All right, moving on to other people's most improved players. I just wanted to get my Grizzlies propaganda off.
No bias here, genuinely, but it is a Bulls player. Kobe White.
I agree with you.
It's Kobe White.
Probably
I don't even like Kobe White
in NBA history.
He's good and he's on my team. I don't like him, but he's he's most improved player.
Who is our MVP?
I was watching Inside the NBA last night, right before the Bucks game, and Shaq was talking about how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP because he meets Shaq's criteria and he has like 50, 30-point games this year. And Candace Parker, and God bless her, God love her for consistently being the voice of reason no matter where she is, says, let me ask you this. If this was the first year that Jokic was playing at the level that he plays at, is he the MVP? Fucking show-stopping question. That is the question. That's the right way to be thinking about this. The answer is unequivocally yes, and Shaq was like, no. Fucking liar.
He's just upset because another big man's being good.
Yeah,
being better 100%.
I think what sucks is I could sit here and spend 10 minutes making a case for Giannis, and I could sit here, spending 10 minutes making a case for Luka, but it's not going to happen, and it's just going to go to Jokic. So it just feels almost pointless to.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Shai guy. My MVP video concludes in me thinking that Shai would win and Jokic would be a very close runner-up. But looking at the odds recently, it seems like Jokic is probably going to get it. So if I'm going just predictions, I'm changing my prediction to Jokic.
It's not so much prediction as so much it is your personal ballot. So I think you're locked in. But you're allowed to change.
Oh, you're right. I wasn't thinking about it like that. Jason Tatum. I'm voting Jason Tatum. It's going to be Jokic, but I'm voting Jason Tatum. I'm not kidding. It's going to be Jokic, but put Jason Tatum down for me.
Jacob, who am I locking in for you?
SGA. Fuck
SGA.
It. That's who I want to win it.
Uh-oh.
I love Jokic.
Yeah, I'm going Jokic.
My vote is for SGA purely because I'm biased and I want this to set the table for Ja Morant being a perennial MVP contender because Ja Morant can
How is it always about the Grizzlies,
it's
dog?
Always about the Grizzlies.
My shit almost broke. All right. Splash. Now let you know how my eyes be.
So that's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, our
keep padding the run time.
Our 2024 shoot-around MVP. Now for the moment we're all waiting for, though. This is what I'm really excited about. Who deserves an apology the most this NBA season? We're going to get a real-life trophy made and send it to this NBA player's house. because we have that type of connection and information
That's how you
available
end
to
up
us.
getting a restraining order filed against you.
The TS AAA is an award about being sorry. So I'm saying the guy who deserves the apology most is Drew Holiday, not only because he's off of our top 50, yada, 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 but also because I think the NBA community at large underestimated the importance of Drew Holiday to the Bucks' success in recent seasons. He had the iconic moment icing the series for them in the finals with that clutch steal. He's been one of the perennially the best maybe perimeter defender in the NBA. Is like way up there in those conversations routinely. And I think the upgrade from Dame to Drew was understated, or rather overstated going into the season. And it was more of a type of player being radically different, but the talent level is a lot closer than maybe we initially thought. So I'm sorry to Drew Holiday.
Completely. I think you got that backwards.
I think people thought Dame would make the Bucks a contender as like a very obvious upgrade, but like they lost their perimeter defense.
We also thought that Dame wouldn't fucking fall off. So that's another factor.
So I have a take with this whole Dame making the Bucks a contender thing. I think my whole thing is if the Nuggets didn't exist, every team that we consider to be in that second tier of contender is considered like a top tier contender. But because the standard with the Nuggets is set so high, everyone else just looks just a cut below because the Nuggets are so good. I would say my pick is Karl Anthony Towns. He completely just like changed his entire game. Right. Not necessarily his entire game, but like he got good at defense pretty much for the most part outside of that one game against the Hornets where he was trying to get 70 points or whatever. He did everything he needed to do to make himself an integral part of the team that now looks like, yeah, they got a shot. You can argue over how good of a shot they have to win a championship, but they've got a shot. Shout out Karl Anthony Towns. I will be the first to apologize. I did not expect him to fix as much as he did. He's been great this year.
I am going to go with Kobe White. I had this epiphany after mentioning him for most improved player and saying that I didn't like him. When we drafted him, I was like, okay, we just drafted a bust. That's cool. Then after I was like, okay, this guy's kind of still going to be a bust for being the 7th overall pick, but he can be like a pretty damn good 25 minute per game, like 6th, 7th man. And then this year, while I don't think he's become all-star caliber like a lot of people have said, because I just don't think people understand how truly high the all-star caliber is becoming. Way above average starter to like Giga Chad 6th man potentially if we went that route, like way better than I ever thought he would be.
I think maybe it's worth mentioning who your original pick was going to be because I think it's a good one.
Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
I just didn't go with it because his numbers kind of did start to take a dip as the year went along. If this was like start of the season, Dylan Brooks, is so wrong. But, he definitely kind of went back to some of his old ways, and Rockets fans have been liking him less and less. But he's definitely better than I thought, which was that he wasn't even an NBA player. That's definitely true.
Nick, who are you nominating?
Dog, I'm going to be honest. Fucking no one. I don't know anybody an apology. I wear it all
I'm
on
always
my sleeve.
Right.
I usually am. I'm seldom wrong about these things. I usually have like really, really good vision on this kind of shit. I don't know if I'm mean about a player, usually it's rooted in something that's real. And then if they prove me wrong, I'll make a nice video about them, but that doesn't change my mind about them. Yeah, nobody. Not to sound like Conor McGregor, but I owe a fucking apology to nobody. I'm usually right.
Fellas, I think that's the end of the podcast. Maybe? Is it? You think so?
Splash. Now that you know how my eyes be.
And now you are an NBA champion, Nikola. How does that feel?
It's good. It's good. The job is done. We can go home now.
Congratulations.